Well, as we've seen on display, simmering racial tension. We've seen the Palestinian protests at the Opera House, and we've seen an Israeli vigil and a lot of conversation in between. What we haven't heard from is the leaders of MPs in Western Sydney during this time. Joining me now is Independent MP Dai. Dai, thanks so much for your time. And we do speak every fortnight, and we appreciate this regular chat. What is your view from where you sit? Is this a difficult conversation among your community at the moment?
Look, I haven't got a sense in terms of, obviously for my community, how that is impacting them. But as a person observing from afar, I think that it is, it's a very obviously complex issue. And I think the Middle East, the long-running issue around the occupation and the living next door between the Israelis and Palestinian, that has always been a big issue in the Middle East. Even the former Prime Minister, Yitzhak Rabin, who tried to, bring together a peaceful conversation, as you could probably recall, got assassinated in 1995. And that was, I think, the closest that the world leaders got to coming to some kind of a peaceful conversation. And I don't know if Australia and world leaders can really work towards a long-term solution for both sides. And I think we need to be very careful in terms of as elected members of parliament. From my perspective, my concern is obviously for my community, which is found as one of the most multicultural communities in the country. And we have shown that we have been able to live side by side with cultural differences, respecting that, first of all, and acknowledging that we are Australians first and foremost. And that's why we chose to come to Australia, because of the peace that has offered. And I'm speaking here being a child of a war-torn country in Vietnam. And I know too well of the sorrows of wars, because at the end of the day, innocent lives are lost. And so that is for me, when I see these kind of tension and killings and violence taking place, it takes me back to obviously the wars that have caused the displacement of hundreds and millions of Vietnamese refugees and subsequent wars. So I don't know if wars and violence will be the answer to bring some kind of a peaceful conversation together. And I hope that Australia, being a very multicultural country, can lead the way in bringing the differences, people with differences of perspectives together and find a peaceful way forward with this. But we have to be very mindful. Lives have been lost. And what I've read, children's lives have been lost, and anger there. And I don't know if we as the media, as commentators, should add fuel to that, because it's so much tension there at the moment. There's so much emotion out there in the world at the moment, and we need to take a step back and look at and reflect, what role can we play? What role can I play? For me, I need to look after and be representing my community. That's my priority. That's what I have to look at. And my community, obviously, they're living have their own concerns and their own priorities here in Fowler. So, and I have no doubt other communities will be more impacted in this. And so that's for me, I think, to say as little as possible about this, and just to reflect and think, what role can we as Australian leaders play towards building a longer and more come up with a peaceful solution, but then really look at, if more experienced leaders and peace negotiators in the past have tried and have failed, what can we do?
Yeah, that's a lack of hope that's quite devastating, but to come from a place of empathy is a pretty good place to start as a first reaction, I think. Well, look, let's talk about something completely different now. I want to ask you about The Voice. It is D-Day for The Voice on Saturday. How do you think your community will vote?
Look, from what I can, I saw apparently on Sky News, it's saying that I think on Paul Murray a few nights ago talking
Hmm.
about the statistics in terms of who's going to be voting. I don't know how the statistics came about, and the last week, walked around with Ali Langton, and we vox popped and talk to people, and the sense that people either don't know what they're doing, they don't know what it's about, it's confusing, or they've got people have got so many other things in their mind that they just have to focus on that, their families, their business, and that's for them as a priority. So that's, from my perspective, that is the general feeling that I get when I go out and talk to many of my constituents here. Look, there are few people who are very passionate about it. Like I have said, one or two contacted me, said, I'm passionate about this. And I said, that's great. Then you go and you do what you're passionate about. For those, who don't want to support it, or they don't understand, then that's their right as well. So I'm always of the view that as a politician, and I've said this to people over and over, it's not my role to tell them how to vote.
Mm.
The one thing that we really value here in Australia is the fact that we have a ballot, a secret ballot, and we can vote the way that we choose and the way that we understand, the way that we've been informed, and that's people's choice. I believe very much in the individual's choice to choose how they want to vote. And I will hold, like many people, like one or two people with Vox Pop, they said, my ballot is secret and I choose not to share. And I said, I respect that, because that's people's choice. And for people who want to share then how they feel about it, then that's their choice as well. And I think that's for my community. And I think I've said this over the many months, and we've spoken quite a while now, Laura, about this. I know that my community come to me for, issues that I know that the Canberra people don't talk about.
Yeah.
It's about the cost of living. It's about what they experience right now, the rising cost in fuel, and of course now what's happening with the Middle East. I have no doubt that'll impact, the petrol price as well. And electricity bills, housing. I went yesterday. To our local schools and talking to some of the 10, 11, and 12 students. We asked them, what are your issues of concern? You know what they said? These are year 9, 10, 11, 12, cost of living. I'm thinking, these are students, their cost of living, in fear of whether they're going to get a job when they finish and they leave school, and mental health. So those are the things that the young people that, in some of the schools that we visited have shared with me.
Yeah, I'm not surprised by that in the slightest. Cost of living would affect, I reckon, 99% of the population at the moment. Dai, a pleasure to check in. We'll see you soon.